Photoshop Beta just got a batch of new updates to the way you generate images, and they just might change the way you work. In this video, I'll walk you through 3 of them, show you exactly how each one works with examples, and be honest about where they're still a little rough around the edges since this is a beta. The first feature is dynamic layers, which lets you blend between the original and the generated results with a slider. Markup, which lets you draw directly on the image to tell Photoshop what to change, and 4K generation with Nano Banana 2 and Pro, which gives you more flexibility and stunning images. These are regular features in Firefly, but are now coming to Photoshop. Before I jump into the examples, these new features are all in Photoshop Beta right now, so if you want to follow along, make sure you have the beta version installed through Creative Cloud. The first thing you'll notice is that generative fill is now prompt to edit. They keep changing the name. That's not all that's new. With these updates, you'll have much more control over the generative process. So let's start with dynamic layers, because it's the one I think you'll want to check out first. This one is similar to Tune or Precision Flow tool in Firefly. Normally when you get a generative edit, you get a result, and if it's not right, your only option is to prompt again and hope for something better. That burns time and it burns credits. With dynamic layers, your generated edit becomes an adjustable layer with a slider. That slider lets you move between your original image and the generated result. And what's different about this tool is it's a generative layer that you can go back to and adjust again. Let me show you with this portrait. My first prompt is going to change that stormy sky to a sunset. So now, instead of being stuck with whatever intensity it gave me, I can get a slider by choosing dynamic layer. It takes a minute for it to get ready, so go get a cup of coffee. Then I can slide toward the original for a subtle hint of sunset, or all the way toward the generated version for a full dramatic sky. Once I find the spot I like, I lock it in. That's it, no reprompting. And as you can see, this is a step up from the Firefly version. And just a quick note, it does balloon your file size, so make sure to delete any versions you don't need. Now let's do the same thing with her hair. I prompt to change her from a redhead to a blonde. Same deal, I get the generated blonde version, then I'll choose dynamic layer. Maybe I want a color that sits between the two, and now I can actually get that without gambling on a new generation. This gives you that middle ground, and it makes every generation go further. Plus, since it's a generative layer, I can go back anytime to make more adjustments. So if your client thinks it's too much sunset, no problem. The next update is Markup, and this one is really fun to use. Sometimes describing a change in words is just harder than pointing at it. Markup lets you draw directly over your image and tell Photoshop what you want. You can brush rough areas or add text annotations right on the canvas, and Photoshop uses that as part of your prompt. In this beta, Markup only works with Nano Banana 2 and Nano Banana Pro models, so keep that in mind when you're setting up your generation. Now, this isn't as robust as the markup tools in Firefly or Photoshop on the web. Those give you a color palette to choose from when recoloring. I would assume this one gets that eventually, but for now, it's still a handy way to point at exactly what you want. Let me show you with a scene I've got here. 2 1950s cars parked out in a field with 2 picnic blankets laid out on the grass. First, I want to move one of the picnic blankets to a different spot. Instead of typing out where I want it, which can be a little trial and error, I just grab the brush and mark the area I want it moved to, and I add a prompt to move picnic blanket to this area, and Nano Banana 2 understands the intent from the drawing plus the prompt. That spatial control is so much better than trying to describe a location with words, and we're just getting started because the real power of Markup is doing several things at once. Here's where Markup gets really efficient. You're not limited to one change per generation. You can make multiple markups at once, and here's the part that matters for your credits. All of those changes together only count as one single generation. So if you've got a handful of edits that you want to make to the same image, batching them into one markup pass is the smart way to stretch your budget. Let me stack up a bunch of changes on that picnic scene. I'll mark one of the cars and note that I want its color changed, and I'll add a note up in the sky for a more dramatic sunset. Then I'll change a blanket's color and add a picnic basket. That's 4 separate changes, 2 color changes, a sky change, and an addition, all in one pass. Nano Banana 2 reads all of those markups together and returns the image with everything applied. 1 generation, 4 edits. This is a genuinely practical way to work if you're mindful about credits, and honestly, it's just faster too. The last update is a big one for anyone who needs high-resolution images. You can now get 4K images with Nano Banana 2 and Nano Banana Pro. But I want to show you one thing that tripped me up at first. There is no setting that says 4K, like in Firefly. And you can't take a lower resolution image and make a generative edit that upscales it through a prompt the way you can in Firefly. This is a beta feature, so we'll see what the final version is. What you can do now is generate in 4K from scratch. Start with a Photoshop document set to 3840 by 2160, which is 4K. I'll generate a snowboarding action shot, and because the document is 4K, I get a genuinely high resolution result. Let me zoom in so you can see the detail. The texture, the snow, the edges, the detail is stunning. This also gives you flexibility for cropping. When your source is that large, you can zoom in tight on your subject and crop in without the image falling apart. So that one snowboarding shot can become a wide hero image, a tight action crop, a couple of detail shots, all from the same generation. This is a valuable update. Dynamic layers, markup, and 4K. If this has been helpful, hit subscribe because I've got a whole Photoshop beta playlist that I keep updated so you don't miss a thing. Now go and try some of these new features out for yourself and let me know in the comments which one you're most excited about and what you're hoping comes to Photoshop next. I'll see you next time.